Hey champion guitar players, people ask me all the time, how can I play, create, or improvise better guitar solos and melodies over chord changes? Now what many guitar players do is they just randomly play up and down a scale thinking that as long as they're playing in key that their solo is going to sound good. But when they try that, many are unhappy with what they play. So then they go searching for new licks to play or new techniques to learn. Today, I'm going to show you a very easy step-by-step process that you can use over any song or any set of chord changes. So grab your guitar and let's do this together right now. All right, so let's begin with our set of chord changes. We're going to play 4 chords. They're in the key of A minor, and the chords are F major, D minor, A minor, and G. So now let's talk about the notes in each chord. In case you don't know what they are, the notes of an F chord are F, A, and C. And when the F chord is played, we're going to target at least one of those notes to kind of hang on, and we can build licks starting from that note. Then when we have the D minor chord, we have the notes D, F, and A. Same thing. When the D minor chord is played, we're going to target at least one of those notes to kind of be the basis for any phrases that we might play over that chord. Then for the A minor chord, we have the notes A, C, and E. And then for the G chord, we have the notes G, B, and D. And we're going to do the same thing over those 2 chords too. So when soloing over chord changes, the starting point, the easiest way to begin is not just to think, well, okay, these chords are all in A minor, so I can just go up and down my scale in A minor. You can do that, of course, but if you want your melodies, your phrases, your licks to sound a little bit more melodic, like it fits the chords, then we want to be thinking a little bit more about what are the notes within each chord that you could hang around or hang on or have the basis for your phrase on over that chord, and then connect those with the notes of the next chord. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. So now let's begin. Before we hear our backing track, let's simply choose a target note for each chord. And again, that's going to be the basis that we'll use to build licks on or phrases or to connect a solo. So I'm going to show you on the screen here an example of target notes for each chord, and let's hear it with the backing track so you hear what this sounds like. So pretty simple so far. We're just playing whole notes. Now, obviously, we're not going to just play one note per chord and make a whole solo out of that. I mean, I guess you could, but I'm assuming you want to do more than that, and that's fine. We're just using the target notes, the chord tones, as a basis, as a foundation from which we can build and improvise phrases from those notes. All right, so for the next example, we'll add more notes. We'll play first, and then we'll break it down and talk about it and see what's going on here. So as you hear, we're basically just starting on the same target notes that we had originally, right? And the F note for the F chord. And we're just adding in these other notes around it. Then we're adding a second target note to the F chord. So remember, the notes in an F chord are F, A, and C. So we begin on F. And then we're going to go up to C. Okay, so that's measure 1. Then when we get to measure 2, remember that chord's D minor. So we're starting on D, playing the notes around it. Then we're going to add the note A because there's an A note in the D chord. D, F, and A are the notes in the D minor chord. All right. Then for the third measure, we're starting on C. Remember that the third measure was A minor, so C is one of the notes in A minor. Then we're adding this note, G, as a secondary target note. Now, the G note is not in an A minor chord. The notes of A minor are A, C, and E. But the G note is the seventh, the minor seventh, of an A minor chord, and it still sounds very nice. So if you didn't want to play the seventh, and you instead wanted to play something else, you could go up to the 10th fret and play A instead of G. That's the G, that's the seventh. That is A, the root, if you prefer. Whatever you want to do is fine. Now for the last chord, the G chord, we're starting on the B note. That's one of the notes in a G chord. G, B, and D are the notes. So we're just starting on B and playing the notes around it. Returning to B, and then finishing on a G note, which of course is the root of a G major chord. So altogether, we've got basically just 2 target notes per chord or per measure, and then we're just playing some easy, simple little, notes around the first target note to connect the first to the second. Holding out the second target note, nice little vibrato. Etc. And it sounds really cool. You don't have to do a whole lot. I mean, could you play faster notes? Of course you could. Could you play fancy licks and all the cool techniques that you know? Of course you can. But the point here is to identify notes that you know are going to sound good against each chord, play a phrase, and then land on another note that's going to sound good over the next chord when that next chord appears. And that's going to help your playing sound a lot more melodic and make the licks and the phrases that you're playing really feel like they fit the song appropriately. Now, you don't always have to do that, of course, but if you're trying to train yourself to be able to play more melodically, to make the phrases fit the progression, the chord progression a little bit better, this is a really good place to start. Next, let's change directions here a little bit and start with a new set of target notes for each chord. So the chord progression will be the same, F, D minor, A minor, and G. But now we're going to choose new target notes. So for the F chord, let's start with an A note. I just chose A here sort of arbitrarily. 10th fret of the second string, that's an A note. That will sound very nice over the F chord. Then for the D minor chord, instead of playing a note that's in D minor, which we could, D, F, and A, let's play a note that's actually the 6th or the 13th of D minor, which would be a B note. Now, you'll see why we're going to do this in just a moment, but for now, let's just play the B note, 12th fret of the second string. Okay, so we've got A for the F chord, B for the D minor chord. It will sound good. You'll hear why in a moment. Then for the A minor chord, let's play C. And then for the G chord, let's play D. So we've got this, A, B, C, D. All right. Now, that B note for the D minor chord in measure 2, it's going to work because even though it's the 6th or the 13th, it's kind of implying a B diminished chord here. Like this is the root of a B diminished chord. If you don't follow what I'm saying right now, that's okay. Just know that you can play a B note over a D minor chord in this key of A minor, and it's going to sound good most of the time, and it will sound good in this case. So let's hear this with the backing track, and let's just hear how it sounds with those target notes. Pretty cool. All right, for this next example, we're going to keep the target notes the same as we did before, but now we're going to add some connection points, some other additional notes, to more smoothly connect these notes together. All right, so what you hear there, again, is our target notes, just A, B, C, and D. But now what we're going to do is we want to make these notes sing. So we want to play these notes like a singer might actually sing them. So we're going to use some vibrato on the first note of each measure. Okay, then I'm going up to the B note, 12th fret, playing it and killing it. So it's called a staccato note. We're not letting it ring out all the way to its value of an eighth note. We're just playing it and then muting it. And I'm just muting it with this hand. So I play the note and then my first finger, the tip of the first finger, just mutes that string. Just kills it, okay? Then, so let's start again. So we got first measure. Same thing here. Then we're adding in this high note here. That's a high B note. Why are we adding that in there? Just for something different to do. It's kind of cool. And that B note is another chord tone in the G chord, because there's a G chord being played in that moment. So D to B, both those notes are in the G chord. So all together, now I'm adding some nice vibrato there, or at least I think it's nice, and I would suggest for you to do that too. If your vibrato is different than mine, that's okay. But try to make the notes really sing. So instead of thinking like a guitar player, which there's nothing wrong with that, think like a singer. Imagine a good singer singing these notes, and that's what we're trying to mimic with phrasing like this. Can you sort of hear someone's voice sing? I wish I could sing for you, but I can't, and I won't embarrass myself here. But if a good singer could sing that, it might sound something similar to what you just heard. So let's talk for a moment about how to practice soloing over chord changes. So the first suggestion I have for you is not to try to take the licks that you know or the techniques that you can do and try to cram them in over a song or over a chord progression. Instead of starting with that, start from the opposite side. Just think about the chords, what notes are in those chords, choose one to start with for each chord and play that. Just play that by itself. Sure, it's going to be a little boring at first, but it's just the foundation. It's just a basis for which you can then fit your licks or create new ones or improvise with. But you know, by doing this, you know that what you play is going to sound pretty melodic, because when the chord hits, okay, and you're playing a note on top of it that you know is in that chord, and if you got a little nice vibrato or a cool bend or a slide, it's probably going to sound really nice. And then you can go off and play whatever you want. You can play a bunch of fast stuff if you want to. But then when the next chord arrives, try to land on a note that's in the next chord right when that next chord appears. Now, your favorite guitar players do that some of the time, but not all the time. Sometimes they might target notes not when the chord changes, but a little bit after, on beat 2 or beat 3 or the end of 1 or whatever. That happens a lot as well. But in terms of practice and training for you right now, my suggestion is find a target note right when the chord starts be playing that target note. Then you can go off and play whatever. Then when the chord changes, right on beat 1 of that chord change, when it appears, you want to be on the new target note for whatever fits that chord. Then you can go off and play whatever you want for the rest of the measure. And then when the third chord appears, probably in measure 3 or whenever it appears, again, same thing. Choose a target note and get on that target note right when that chord appears. If you do that, and if you do it consistently, playing over chord changes is going to feel a lot easier. You're going to sound a lot more melodic, and it's just going to sound better, okay? And then as you advance, you can target chord tones or extensions, notes that are in the key but not in the chord, the 7th, the 9th, the 11th, whatever. That's a little bit more advanced. But you could target those notes when the chords change or on beat 2 or whatever you want. But for now, just focus on notes in the triad most of the time. When the chord changes, you're on it with the chord tone, a nice slide, nice vibrato. Just make it sound intentional. Make that note sound good, the best you can, okay, like a singer would sing. Also, if you want to learn how to make any guitar lick that you know sound even better, I'm going to show you how in my new free ebook titled The Secret to Adding Fire and Emotion to Any Guitar Lick. It's free. Click the link below to download your copy and take every lick that you know and make each one sound even better.